Hi folks, we're back here. So we've got this camera, CCTV camera we want to set up. As you can see, we've put the antenna on it. We've got our micro SD card that we've installed into the back of the camera. We've got this cable here. The black cable is going to be what we've run to the power cable, and that's going to have to be plugged in. This cable here, this white Ethernet cable, has to be in this little slot here. Then it has to be mounted into the back of your modem or router, or whatever you call these things. So that way you've got a feed set up. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to download an app called i4. So EYE with the number 4 afterwards in either the Android or Apple system. Once you do that, we're going to go back here to get set up. I'm going to go onto the home screen. So push the home button. You want to click under device management. Once you've done that, you want to push the plus button here. Then you want to go underneath where it says IP camera. Then you want to go where it says QR code add camera. Then what you do is you can name this thing anything you want. It doesn't really matter what you name it. It'll come up as a default net cam. You change anything you want. I'm going to put it outdoor camera. You check the UID number, which is found on the back of the camera, this VSTA. You don't need the hyphens and you don't need large case. It really doesn't matter. You just put VSTA, in my case, 661284. ZK, and you can do all that in lowercase. The default password this comes with is 88888, so 3 8s. So input that, and then at the bottom, you would push confirm. And it'll then prompt you to change the password, which I highly recommend that you do. So you don't use a default password. Once you've done that, we go back to the home button. Oops, what did I do here? Push the wrong button. So when we do that, we go back to the home screen now. And we go under device management, and we're going to see netcam 1. That's the camera that I've just added. So we're going to click on this little arrow over here. And when we do that, we want to make a few settings. The first thing you want to do before you do anything else is update the firmware, which I've already done. So it's the latest firmware. This company's great. They're constantly putting out new updates of firmware to keep this thing running properly. So there'll be a little corner that you push on that says update firmware. So make sure you do that first thing before you do anything else. Once the firmware has been updated, the next thing you want to do is go under SD recording settings, and you want to format your micro SD card. You'd actually push on this little button here in the top corner. It takes about 30 seconds to a minute. The whole thing reboots, and then your SD card is formatted properly. I put a 64 gigabyte micro SD card in. Next thing you want to do is set up your schedule of motion recording. I recommend don't use the 24/7 recording. I only have them recorded for motion. Otherwise, you're recording all the time, and you have to fish through stuff to try and figure out what's actually being recorded, which is kind of a pain in the bum. Then so you click motion recording schedule, select the medium option, as I found is the best one. Otherwise you're getting very few things are being recorded, or you're getting everything's being recorded. Then the next thing you want to do after that is click here where it says add motion schedule recording. I've already done this, so I'm just going to click on the one that I've already added. So you would actually click on this blue button here, but on this one here, there we go. I've got it set up so at 00 to 001 in the morning to 23:59 hours, so that's really 24 hours a day. And you want to make sure these are all light blue every day of the week. If they're not in light blue, if they're black, that means it's not recording on that day. So whenever you've made those changes, make sure you put the save button. Once you've done that, go back. There we go. So we've changed our password, sensors are done, firmware has been updated, SD recording has been updated. Now what we want to do is hit Wi-Fi settings. Once we do Wi-Fi settings, it's going to scan for Wi-Fi, and you just introduce the password that you find on the side of your modem or router or whatever these things are called. Once that's all done, now what you can do is you can unplug your Ethernet cable. And now it'll be directly linking, no longer an Ethernet connection. The Wi-Fi from here is now connecting to the camera. Through your Wi-Fi, you can now do everything on the app. So now this camera is ready for mounting on the outside of your house. I would recommend, however, that this is great, this app, to set it up for fed up all the sensors, but I don't actually like using this particular app for day-to-day monitoring my camera. I personally prefer to use this other app called Vstarcam. Let me go back again. It's called Vstarcam PNP. I would highly recommend using that app. I find it's a better day-to-day functioning app. You do the same thing we just did before. So go back to the home screen. You would hit this plus button to add a new camera. With the same thing, you would add the VSTA number with your password. Once it's got that in place, you also have to have your Ethernet connection connected. And then you'd hit this button over here on the side. And you go through the same concept. You go settings. You'd add your Wi-Fi, what your Wi-Fi password is. This one's great, the Wi-Fi Manager, this app, because it'll let me choose. I can change the Wi-Fi if I want to another Wi-Fi setting. For me, I'm using currently my Wi-Fi extender on this. You can change your password again, your notification settings. I don't actually use the notification settings on this camera, on this app rather. The time setting is very important. So you want to make sure that this thing digitally imprints the time on your motion detector setting. So if someone's broken into a neighbor's house and they said at 3 o'clock in the morning, between 3 and 4 a.m., someone broke into their house and you can find the vehicle that drives by, you want to make sure your time is set up the right way. So the default, this thing comes up as Greenwich Mean Time, which isn't really helpful for us. We are in Central Standard USA to take into account for daylight savings time here in Calgary. So we're going to push that button. There we go. And we're going to click done. There we go. So our time is now updated on the camera. SD card settings are the same concept. That'll tell us what the SD card is in there. Other settings. This is on this version is, if you use this setting, this is how you can update your firmware from time to time. So you want to check that every month or so when you're using your app. Then once we go back to the actual app itself, we can click on IP camera. And that's the camera is currently I've got mounted inside the house. You just have it looking around. But it's a very good quality lens on this thing. So it's very impressive. So we just hit the back button. Unfortunately, if you're using Apple devices, you know it doesn't have the back button. Don't really understand why anybody buys those things. Then we also want to do is view camera SD video. If we want to go back, so we click on time. Then this is motion detection settings. So this is when it's recorded for a few seconds before their motions till a few seconds after the motion is finished. And we can click on any of these and it'll play back any recordings that were done where there's been movement. There's just my hand moving around as we've been making this video. So that's really how you use this app. So the next thing I'm going to do is set it up on the outside of the house, and then I'll show you what the final product looks like. But it's a very, very good camera. Highly recommend it.